Question number 9, Carmel Sepuloni.
To the Minister of Social Development, does she have confidence in the ability of the Ministry of Social Development to exercise financial due diligence?
Honourable Anne Tolley.
Yes.
Supplementary question, Carmel Sepuloni.
Supplementary question. What confidence does she have in the Ministry's ability to responsibly manage taxpayers' money, given that in 2013-14, 6 Ministry officials spent an average of over $30,000 in other expenses for international travel, including a Ministry official's nearly $50,000 taxpayer-funded 5-day trip to Melbourne?
Honourable Anne Tolley.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'd say first that that member needs to do a bit more homework, because in fact, that particular $50,000 payment was for a 2-year postgraduate study for the Chief Legal Counsel of MSD, and I think that that was money well spent.
Why is it supplementary question?
Order. Supplementary question.
Why should the Ministry fork out nearly $30,000 for other expenses for the Minister's private secretary's trip to London, Paris, New York and Honolulu in May 2014?
Honourable Anne Tolley.
Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Social Development is involved in a great deal of reform. We have welfare reform, a reform of the child, youth and family, and I would expect that we would be looking to overseas countries for their answers to some of the issues that this country is facing. So I would say that if we are learning from other countries, again, that is money well spent.
Supplementary question, Mr. Speaker.
Order. A little less interjection through the answer would be helpful, and the question, Carmel Sepuloni.
Supplementary question. Does she agree with MSD CEO's response about the $3.1 million increase in external contracting, the $3.4 million increase in advertising and PR costs, and the trebling of funding to international travel being a drop in the bucket compared to the overall Ministry's budget? If so, why?
Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Anne Tolley.
Well, first of all, I'm not exactly sure what the Chief Executive said, nor in what context. But what I am sure of is that this Chief Executive is responsible for a budget of about $23 billion, delivers services and support to over 1 million New Zealanders across the spectrum, and he manages about 10,000 staff. And I'm sure that he came along expecting the opposition to ask him questions about things that New Zealanders are really worried about, like the unemployment rate, about support for solo parents, support for people who are disabled and sick in our community, not asking them about minute expenditures that is well explained in PR campaigns that respond to concerns around teenage sexual violence, like and also around campaigns to help elderly with enduring powers of attorney. Those are the sorts of things that were explained to the member in the financial reviews yesterday.
Supplementary question, Mr. Speaker.
Supplementary question, Carmel Sepuloni.
How can she claim that this misspending is minute or not significant when it amounts to $5.4 million and MSD's programs it was forced to defer in the last budget due to lack of funding only came to $7.2 million?
Honourable Anne Tolley.
Mr. Speaker, I didn't say that this money was misspent, and in fact I disagree entirely with that proposition. I'm surprised that the opposition think it isn't worthwhile responding to huge public concern in the wake of the Roastbusters to actually make sure that there is an education program on giving young teenage New Zealanders tools to protect them against sexual violence. That was one part of the expenditure that member was criticising yesterday. And as I say, a campaign that gave good information to our seniors on the meanings, on the concerns around an enduring power of attorney. That was another one of those increases in expenditure that the member raised yesterday. I'm surprised that the opposition doesn't think that they're worthwhile.
Supplementary question, Mr Speaker.
Supplementary question, Carmel Sepuloni.
Is the reason she thinks her ministry's extravagant expenditure is okay because she thinks all those people without work are living pretty good lifestyles because of their, as she says, little bit of dole, cash crop and kaimoana?
Honourable Anne Tolley.
Mr Speaker, what I'd say in answer to that question is the member needs to stop playing to the media and actually do some homework. Make sure that the accusations she makes are correct. Because of the 3 accusations she put to the Chief Executive yesterday, 3 were incorrect.
Order. Question number 10, Stephen Brown.